What's up guys, so today in this video we're going to talk about front of house consoles and monitor consoles and why you use two and how to set them up, whether it be independent of each other. And so in this video we're going to be using a Behringer x32 full size and M32r paired with a DL32. I'm going to go into the routing, how to set it up, and why I do the things I do. Okay, so here is the DL32. This is going to be our I/O for today, and we're going to use it as a digital split. Our monitor console for today is going to be this guy. It's a Midas M32r, and our front of house desk is going to be this Behringer x32. So why you would use two different consoles is because of the limitations of each console. What does that mean? So with both of these, they are limited to 16 buses per, and that is including your left, right, and your sub. And you might have matrices or matrices for like delays or front fills or whatever. And then you have monitors, and then you have effects buses. So all of that has to fit within 16. Otherwise you need two. So let's just say you have a band on stage and you have 4 wedges along the front and 1 for the drums. That is right there is already 4 different buses. And then you have a PA, which is your 5th bus. You have your front fill 6th bus. Maybe you have delay speakers, that could be 7 and 8. And then you have a cry room for a church, that's 9 and 10. And then you have 4 effects, that's all the way up to 14. And then let's just say you have a record bus, that's 15, 16. So you've already maxed out your buses right there. And then what if you have a guest and they have an in-ear pack, and then you are like, well, I have no more buses. That's why if you have two different consoles, you can get rid of all the buses that your main PA needs. So that'll be your left, right, your sub, your fills, your delay speakers. All of that can be off one console, and then that opens up all these extra buses for your monitor console. So in most high-end professional tours, they have what's called an analog split. What that's doing is, think of a Y cable, right? So you've got one input and it's going to 2 different locations. One will be a front of house console for the audience, and the other one was going to be for the monitor console for the musicians on stage. The other way to do it is what's called a digital split, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video, but it's a little bit less common because of one major limitation. That limitation is your gain. So whatever gain is set on one console, it's going to be set to the same gain on the other console. So before we dive into how to set this up, I really want to dive into our routing tab here on the M32 and kind of show you guys what we're looking at. So on this first tab, it says input. These consoles, the input tab is the only tab that is controlling anything going into the desk. That is only on your input tab. All of the other tabs that is on your routing screen is for outputs. So here on the Behringer x32, I'm on input, and I'm coming in local from all of the local sockets. What that is meaning is all of the XLR inputs behind the console, that's where it's pulling its inputs from. And I'll talk about how to get it from stage boxes and other consoles here later, but on the input tab, that is the only tab that's controlling your inputs. All these other tabs are for outputs only. So on AS50A, what output do I want to come out? Now, most of the time it will be set to output 1 through 8, 9 through 16. Now you can change it for it to be inputs going out down that AS50 port, and I'll show that later. Moving over to the card port, this is what we are outputting from the console to a card, which in my console I have the XUSB card, which is a card that goes to your computer for multi-tracking. And right now I'm just taking all my inputs and sending them out to my computer, so my computer can see every channel of the console and its DAW and record multi-track. Tab over is XLR. These are the physical outputs on the back. So if you want outputs 1 through 4 to actually be 1 through 4, you would hit output 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, 13 through 16. So this is how we assign our outputs. So if we go back to XLR, you see output 1 through 4. That is corresponding to these outputs, output 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then so I'm on output 1. I can go and change it to whatever I want. So if I want mix bus 1 is how I have it set. If I want it to be PA left, I can do that. I would go to main, and hit main left and hit assign. And now my PA left is coming out of output 1. So now that we know why you would use 2 desks and a little bit more on the routing side of both desks, here we are going to show you how to connect everything to pull from digital stage boxes and other consoles to make them all talk to each other. So what we've got right here is called an Ethernet cable. This is actually an Ethercon, and it's shielded. The way you can tell it's shielded is right there is metal, and that's the dead giveaway to know it's shielded. But this is an Ethercon cable, and you can tell because it has this barrel around it. This is the type of cable we need to use to connect from our digital stage box to our console. So for our first setup, we're going to act like we only have one console, and we're going to use this digital stage box. So I'm going to connect the AS50A port of the stage box to the AS50A port of the console and go from there. So like I said, I'm going to take my AS50 cable and plug it into what says AS50A right there it says AS50A, and plug in right there. So for our stage box side of things, right there we've got AS50A and B. We're gonna take this cable and plug it into ASA. Now that we've got that plugged in, you should see a little light next to the A port because we've got a console plugged in. And up top here in the corner, you should see it says DL32. Right there, DL32. That's how you know they are plugged up correctly. Next, we're plugged up. How do we get this thing talking? So the first thing what we need to do is hit our routing page on the console, and then we need to set all of our inputs to come from AS50A. So it'll be AS50A 1 through 8, AS50A 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32. So now all of our inputs are coming from this, and you will see that if you look on your channel strip, it says A, because it's coming from AS50 port A. Now you're going to use all of your inputs from this guy. A little trick you can do instead of scrolling down on all of these is if you're on the routing page and you hit utility, now you can choose all my inputs are coming from AS50A, and then just hit load preset and confirm, and now it sets all of your inputs to come from AS50A. Next we need to set up our output. So if we tab over to AS50A, and you see it says AS50 outputs. So that's how you know that you're talking about outputs. If we're only using one console, we want it to come from AS50A 1 through 8, or output 1 through 8 and 9 through 16. Any of these don't matter unless you are using P16 units, or if you have it connected to another console that can do up to 48 inputs. Now we can confirm that if we take a microphone and plug it into input 1 on our stage box, it should hit input 1 on our console. So I've got SM57 right here. Hey, 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 hey. It needs to be gained up a little bit. I'm going to just crank up the gain just to make it completely obvious that it's coming through. Hey, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can even see right here on the little input meter right there. And if I go to our RTA, you can see that it is responding to this microphone. In this situation, all of your microphones will get plugged into here, into the stage box, and your output. So 16 might be PA right, 15 might be PA left, 14 might be your subs, outputs 1 through 4 might be your monitors, however you want to set it up. But that's how you use one console. Now what if we want to add in this console to be a front of house console and this one to be a monitor console? How will we do that? Alright guys, so just remember to always use shielded cable. I am not going to use shielded cable for this one connection because I don't have any more shielded cable here at the warehouse. But on a show I would use shielded cable, but for now we're just going to use this random Ethernet cable that I found. But the system setup is really similar. So on my front of house console, I'm gonna take my Ethernet cable and plug it into AS50A, just like we did on this console and the stage box. Now I'm gonna take the other end of this cable and it's gonna go into AS50B of the monitor console, just like so. So our connection should be AS50A out of our stage box into AS50A of our M32r for monitor world, out of AS50B of the monitor console, into AS50A of the front of house console. Okay, so now you should see that on both consoles it should show a DR32, which has stage box with a green mark, and an X32 with a red mark. And if I go over to the X32, it shows that it's connected to M32R, but still has a red mark. So we will come back to that, but here's what we need to do on the monitor console. So our inputs are coming into this console, but we want to take all of those inputs untouched, unedited, uncompressed, unequalized. We want a blank. We just want the raw audio to come into the console and go out to the front of house console. So what we need to do is go to routing, have all of our outputs here, and then we want to go over to AS50B, and we want to make those, you want to go up to AS50A, AS50A 1 through 8, AS50A 9 through 16, AS50A 17 through 24, AS50A 25 through 32. So what is that doing? That's taking all of the signals coming into our input, going to out through the AS50B card over to our X32. And that's everything. Okay, so now that we have this console fully set up, we need to do the same onto our front of house console. So what we need to do is hit routing and go over to our inputs, and we want those to come from AS50A 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32. But like I showed you before, we're going to hit utility, import all of our inputs from AS50A, load that preset, and enter. But as you still see, we have a red dot next to M32R. The reason for that is because these two consoles are not talking to each other exactly. They are not clocked at the same speed. So all we have to do to fix that is on your front of house desk, go to setup, and where it says clock source right here, we want to have that come down through AS50A port. So we're clocking this console to that console, so it's using the same 48K, and now our little M32R right there is now green. And if you go over to here, you can see the Behringer X32 is also green. So by clocking this desk to this desk, we given up our gain control. So if we if we select channel 1 and we turn up our gain knob, well, you'll see that it starts off at 12 o'clock. That's at 0. And it shows right here, instead of gain, like it shows right here, it shows gain on the monitor console. This shows trim, because we are stealing the inputs from this console, but that console right there is the master of the chain, so it has gain control. Front of house does not. That also goes for 48 volts. So if I needed channel 2 to have 48 volts of phantom power, I would do it from the monitor console and not from the front of house console. Prove that, if I select channel 2 and I try to turn on 48 volts, it's not going to do anything, because the monitor console is the master of the two and it has full preamp control. Now we can check this out. So if we have a microphone plugged into channel 1, hey, you can see it's going there on this console. And if we go over here, hey, you can see that we've got signal coming in there. Now, just like I said before, the only difference between an analog and a digital split is the gain control and phantom power, who controls that. but everything else is independent of itself. So I could go here and EQ this. I could, if for front of house we wanted it to have no low end, we can just go ahead and scoop all that low end out. And maybe we wanted 2K was a little hot. Actually, I should have grabbed this one. 2K was a little hot. We can take that down. But then on our front of house console, what if he wanted a lot of low end on his vocal for his monitor, and he wanted 2K also taken out? Again, I should have used this one. There we go. So now we have two separate EQs, but it's the same channel. This one's going to the PA. This one's going to his monitors. Guys, I hope that video helped you guys get set up with the Behringer X32 and M32 series of consoles. If you guys have any other questions, leave them in the comment section. But that is how you route digitally with the X32 and M32, and that goes for all the X32 lines, so the rack series, the full size console, and the compact, and it goes for the same with the Midas M32 consoles. It's the full size rack version, and the M32C, which is an iPad only, but it's the same process.